I would have gone big. Like if I knew then what I know now, I would just go a lot bigger at an early age when I had nothing to risk, nothing to lose. Like, go to town.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the Gentle Art of Crushing It show, where we focus on learning and sharing with our listeners all there is to know about how to create success in our lives. This show stands on the shoulders of giants. Our mission is to empower and inspire our listeners to create the life of their dreams whilst having a blast in the process. Let's celebrate life together. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us on another episode of The Gentle Art of Crushing It. Today, I have the amazing, David Pere with us. And so I'm super excited to have you on here, David. Really do appreciate you. And so why don't we start this conversation off with you telling us a little bit about yourself and then maybe, share something most people wouldn't know about you.
Ooh, man. I'm pretty public about stuff at this point. So, I'm sure we can find something. I got one. So, David Pere, I guess my claim to fame, quote unquote, is that I spent 13 years in the Marine Corps, and in the back 7 of that, I went from a negative net worth to nobody really cares, but $1 million net worth, and more importantly, financially free. That's the thing people care about, right? I haven't had to take a job since I left the Marine Corps 2 years ago, just kind of doing my own thing. Haven't died yet, so it's kind of working. Bought a bunch of real estate, teach service members and vets how to buy real estate, how to use their benefits and all that. And let's see, something nobody knows about me. I was homeschooled. Most people don't realize that, as talkative as I am, that I was a weird, sheltered homeschool kid.
Love that. We homeschool our kids also, and it's interesting. A lot of people out there, when you get to know them, they almost like hold on to that and they won't share that, right? Like there's a stigma about it or something. But I think it's super awesome. I wish I was, right? So, but yeah, man, thank you so much for your service. Really appreciate that. And then Marines are top notch, obviously. And you run a show and a business called From Military to Millionaire. Your podcast is awesome. I was actually watching one earlier today where you're breaking down how to, become financially stronger and then, financially independent. And that's sort of your niche is, active military or even inactive, right? But with that being said, everybody can gain a lot from, following you. As when I first met you at the Jason Drees event a few months ago, I told you that I'd already been following you for like years, right? And so, absolutely, David, you're awesome. Check From Military to Millionaire out. And let me ask you this. Do you mind sharing with us, how you found success as you define it?
I think really for me, it's just been consistency. Even when I didn't know what I was being consistent for, I was consistent with something. So like I started this whole, the real estate thing was, that's easy to say like, oh yeah, consistent. You keep buying houses, whatever, over time, you're better off. The brand and like the whole online platform though, I had no idea what I wanted that to be. It was just kind of like, oh, I'm going to document what I'm learning and maybe one day I'll write a book and we'll see what happens. And then it just kind of blew up. But it blew up because I was consistently like, hey, if I'm going to blog, how often should I blog? Every week. If I'm going to podcast, how often should I podcast? Every week. If I'm going to YouTube, you should do 2 to 3 videos a week. And I just did that. And it was just about things I was learning and all of that. But it wasn't like some crazy plan. It was just like take action and figure out where we end up. And then here we are. And now I'm like, oh shit, I should probably be a little bit more intentional about this. But
I love that. I've heard for years that you don't need to, it's the marketing, not the widget that you're selling, right? Like they're both important, but the marketing might be the bigger chunk. And what I've heard is like, just start, putting yourself out there, putting content out there, being consistent, like what you're saying. I think that's huge because you're building your tribe. And then once you build a large enough tribe or whatever, then at that point you can sell just about anything, right? So what would you agree with that?
yeah, I agree. I think, look at Mr. Beast, right? Like there's your perfect example. I mean, that's an extreme, but here's a guy who makes videos about like putting a Lamborghini through a shredder and also has launched a burger company, a chocolate company that's doing very well from what I mean, I would assume
I think
based on
I've
the
seen he
amount of
has
time I see his
cookies and
chocolate. So yeah. Yeah, they seem to be crushing it, and it's all just being launched from his personal brand. I mean, he has nothing to do with cookies, chocolate, burgers within his brand, but he has a brand.
yeah, Mr. Beast. Gotta love him.
I
He's
do.
out of control, successful man.
That dude's awesome.
He really is. Okay, now, yeah, let me ask you this: what would you say is one of the most valuables that you learned from all maybe either anything that you define as successful? So it could be as you became a millionaire in the military, or as you're building this brand. What is something that you would say is one of the most successful or valuable things that you learned from building that?
I think the most valuable thing is that the idea of getting in the room with people that are doing what you want to do. I think, like, if you think about it, if you basically lived in, whatever gym Arnold and all those guys were in pumping iron, like, and you're surrounded by these dudes 24/7, and you ate with them, and you went to the gym when they did, and you just hung out with them, like, you wouldn't get fat, you'd get strong, right? Like, you would eventually look
You're
like them.
probably going to be competing in Mr. Olympia.
Yeah, like,
You
you're
keep
gonna
hanging
you're
out.
gonna go that direction. um and yet for some reason, people just, we don't ever try to associate or get around people that are doing the same things. And so it's like, you want to be a good real estate investor, get in the room with other real estate investors. And if you want to be a good real estate investor and you don't surround yourself with anybody who's investing in real estate, like, that's just going to make your job harder. And so, I'm a big fan of paying to play, to be in rooms with people that are more successful than I am, and just getting around and doing the thing.
Yeah, man. I'm glad you said that because for me, for years, okay, I would look at some sort of course that I wanted to join and be like $1,000 and be like, this person is nuts. There's no way I'm going to do that. Now I very, very clearly, since I started being coached in Jason Dree's coaching community a
Yep.
few years ago. Joined the Action Academy, which I know you're in as well, and um, you know I'm very clearly see the value in pay to play, like exactly like what you said, and networking, which is interesting because that is one of the things that I noticed about you is like it's almost like literally every single sort of like mastermind that I look and see in social media, you're in there, right? Like you see you're in a picture with Brandon Turner, you're in a picture with your group, but there's like 30 people and at just everywhere. So um, I am watching. I know a lot of people are watching, and I think I would agree 1,000% that networking, but being intentional with who you're networking with. And for me, dude, I'll be honest. Like I have, fears around reaching out and to people that I see as successful and going, hey. Do you have a few minutes to chat or whatever? And then, I got to. So, do you ever run into that? And what do you say? Just do it anyways?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on who you're reaching out to and why, right? The easiest thing to do is get a warm introduction. In a lot of these relationships, at this point, it's like, oh, so and so, I'd love an intro if you could make one. And then it's like, if Doug wanted to meet Jason and he was like scared to do it, and then I'm like, yo, Jason, let me tell you about this dude, Doug. He's amazing. Like, that just makes it way easier. Um, so that's like my go-to is like, if I can get a warm intro. But there's definitely, I mean, there's still plenty of cold outreach, that I do for networking and pinging people and hitting people up. It's really just like how you genuinely come across. And everyone's got their own style, but just be yourself. So my, also, I have no problem paying if I really want to get around someone. Like, I will throw down to get around them. And I haven't even been told the price yet. And I committed to, I don't even know if it's official, but in like 2 weeks, in theory, I will be at a mastermind with somebody that I've been trying to get around for a long time, and I don't know the price. It might be 10 grand for all I know, and I will be there as long as the event happens. Now, granted, I'm not going to name names, but uh, everybody would know who this is, and so I'm okay with that. But it's like, for me, while I'm friends with his number two, and I could get a warm intro. Like, in this scenario, that's not how I want to approach it. I just want to throw money down and be like, look, I'm a player. I'm on the field. let's talk. But it's, the approach differs for everything, but I think it really, man, the easiest part, the part of networking people mess up is that it's about relationships, not introductions. And so they spend all this time trying to get in front of somebody, and then they ask and they take. Like, nobody's going to want to put any effort into that relationship if they feel as though you're only there with a like what's in it for me attitude. So you just got to focus on the actual relationship. It'll be good.
And what's in it for them, right? The person that you're
Mhm.
trying to build that relationship with. So
Absolutely.
I love that. What would you say, and you don't have to answer this question if you don't want to, but would you mind sharing with us, one of the more incredibly difficult challenges that you had to go through in life, and what you learned from that?
Well, I had a lawsuit for like 4 years with one of my properties. I basically fell into like a lease option scam. I can't technically say it was a scam, but it's how it feels. Um, but basically, like this guy who, he took my lease option money, and then the building wasn't doing what I thought it was doing and what had been portrayed. And so I was like, "Yo, what gives? Like, you sold me a Corvette and gave me the keys to a Civic. What's up?" And 4 months later, he's like, your money was non-refundable. And I'm like, I didn't pay for this building. I paid for a different building that happened to look just like this. Like, none of the math adds up. Took him to court and took 4 years, but we got every penny back, plus interest, actually. That's all. I think it's all captured pretty well on Bigger Pockets, like show 734, I think is the episode. And yeah, we basically deep dove into like, wow, this is miserable. But I learned a ton about documenting everything in transactions, trusting but verify. I mean, like, and just realizing that like not everybody's out there to be good people. Um, so talk to your attorney earlier than you think you should.
Yeah, like before you purchase the property,
Yeah.
right? As you're
Yeah,
considering.
yeah, yeah. My attorney's
The
told
interesting,
me at
hmm,
least 4 times that he would have been able to save me 5 figures if I had just reached out to him sooner. And I keep learning that lesson the hard way.
well, in those lessons, you're gonna, always remember. We don't want to do it that way. If I could have just done everything my dad told me as growing up, I'd be in a much, more successful spot here. But like, we always remember them a lot better when they're tough lessons, right?
Yeah.
Um, what I was going to ask you about that, because okay, I still would sort of imagine that overall that whole deal, you lost money on. However, this is my assumption, which is going through and standing up for yourself. And nobody wants to go to court. I've been to court multiple times, just like child custody stuff years ago. It's horrible, and it drains on you, and you don't want to go, and it's difficult. So kudos to you for sticking that out. But I also think that you're kind of teaching the world a lesson that not to get over on you, or not to attempt to. At least that guy's not going to try to again, right? But so even though well, I shouldn't like assume that either. But if you did lose money on that, would you say that it was still worth your time to fight somebody in court like that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we lost money on it if you look at it from a time perspective, right? Um, but we were made whole financially, but also, over 4 years, right, until 2022, a 4% return is peanuts compared to what that money would have done had I been able to deploy it anywhere else. So, from an opportunity cost perspective and a time perspective, we definitely lost. But I would agree with you. Yeah, I think like there is some weight there. I've had another partnership that didn't go so great, and it wasn't even a really a partnership, but the guy was trying to, anyway, weird situation. Um, and I was basically able to be like, look, man, I can't predict the future, but I'll tell you that I'm 4 for 4 right now on people that have come after me in court. So if you want to go that route, you go for it. Here's all the court docs, like it's all public record. Have fun. In all 4 of these situations, I've either got the other person to sign a waiver of release, or I've won outright. And you can go read the judgments from the judge, and you can see it wasn't even close. Like, this one, by the end of it, the judge was basically like, why the heck is this in front of me? So I think that held some weight, but I think more importantly than that is like the confidence boost. Like there is, I have always struggled with like second guessing myself or uh, living with like a governor, right? Like not at my full potential, I feel like. And there is something very satisfying to having a gut feeling that you have been wronged, taking it to the legal system, and then just blowing the other party out of the water to the point where they weren't even able to continue with their countersuit because the judge was basically like, nothing holds water. Sorry. And I mean, reading the judgment on that is actually hilarious because it's like, I mean, it's like yeah, it's ugly. It's like I read through it and I'm like, oh, judge said like this is really great. Like there's not any doubt anywhere in this. But like there's something to be said for the confidence boost of that. Like knowing that when my gut says this, like there's a good chance, and like sticking to your guns even when things go really, really, really south, you come out all right.
I can see that, the massive benefit in the confidence boost, especially as a real estate investor. So the particular show that I was listening to of yours earlier, I think it just released earlier, a couple hours ago. You mentioned, briefly, about people when they go to buy an investment. There's almost always somebody talking them out of that. And even, I noticed this. So I have a couple properties, and as soon as we're getting to like the signing and stuff, that's where the self doubt comes real strong. And so I think, having those wins, especially in the realm of real estate, actually, makes that gut even stronger and more confidence there. That's really invaluable because that's one of those fears that's floating around, I think, for most real estate investors, which is, what happens if somebody falls on one of my properties and, sues me for everything or whatever. In those, a lot of those can be, mitigated by a good attorney, but still, I think that would, correct me if I'm wrong, did that help you to sort of like alleviate some of those ridiculous fears?
Yeah, I think knowing that the system is going to work in your favor as long as you do the right thing is pretty helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Yeah, I love it. Awesome. Well, hey, let me shift the conversation a little bit and ask you this fun question, which is, if you were to go back to age 18 and bring your everything you know now, your mindset and everything with you, what would you do differently, if anything, to fast track your success?
Well, I wouldn't spend the first 8 years of my Marine Corps career or 7 years of my Marine Corps career blowing every dollar I would on tattoos and women and cars and motorcycles and guns. Um, I would still blow some money on it, right? Like you're young, have fun, travel, do the things. But I would travel more. I'd have more experiences, and I would have been a lot smarter with where my money went. I would have bought a house with the VA loan earlier. I would have put more into my thrift savings plan. I would have put it into the S&P 500 tracking fund, not the bond tracking fund for 2008 through 2015, where the stock market was reaching 20-30% returns and I was getting 2-3%. Um, but I would have gone big. Like if I knew then what I know now, I would just go a lot bigger at an early age when I had nothing to risk, nothing to lose. Like go to town, because almost all the plays I made at that age, well, no, I took some hits, but overwhelmingly the plays that I made at an earlier age panned out really, really, really well. And I just wish I'd done more of them.
Yeah, I love that. And that's really, and I think you did mention something about this in your show earlier today as well. But the concept's out there anyways, and that is like when you're younger, that's the time to take the bigger risks, especially financially. That's really what we're talking about here, financially, investment wise, real estate investment wise. When you're older, in everybody's situation is different. If you're older and you're sitting on a ton of money that's just sitting in your bank, that might be a good time to go in real strong. But everybody's situation is different. But I hear you, especially I really feel like, and that's what's I don't know, just what one of the great things that the youth can really get is that, hey, you don't have to wait till you're, 28 or 38 or 48 to start taking action, especially in like real estate investing where you can do it much easier, like sort of like you're touching on is like the stock market, right? But just get started, right? And then consistency. But yeah, anything else that you would kind of tell your, 18-year-old version of yourself there?
Man, just get around the right people. I think it really just boils down to what we already kind of talked about, right? Like massive action at an early age, consistency, and getting around the right people. Like you can't lose.
I mean, that's actually that's huge, and it's so true that getting around the right people and you birds of a feather is really important, and it really really does work.
Yeah.
We moved from California, the Bay Area, where I've got all kinds of friends and family that their goals are not in alignment with mine. And then we moved to middle of nowhere, Texas, and now most of my friends are, sort of virtual or whatever, but they're more in alignment with my goals and my dreams, So, and the growth is there. It's just, it does work. So I just want to, say 1,000%, like, better than I do, but that this is like gold for sure. Um, yeah,
Absolutely.
awesome. Thanks. What would you say, what are your thoughts on, success mindset or a scarcity mindset, and how to go from a scarcity, non-success mindset or scarcity mindset to go to a successful or abundance mindset? Any thoughts on that, or a way to fast track that?
Ooh, I might be the worst person to ask this because I probably have an abundance mindset to a fault in some areas, and then like the exact opposite. Like I'm all over the place. I think everyone probably is, but like I am. One of my biggest issues is probably that I don't care about money enough. And so like I will give it away, I'll spend it, I'll be like, yeah, it's gonna come back. Like that's all abundance, right? Like, oh yeah, Dave's just look at him tipping too much or doing whatever. But the problem is like there've been plenty of times that screwed me where I'm like, yeah, we're great. And then like somebody just takes advantage of me. Um and then like on the flip side, I still have a lot of the scarce like beliefs around like finances, like where, like gotta keep it close to my chest. I think the biggest thing, man, it's so cliche. It all seems so cliche, but it's like that financial thermostat. It's getting around, other people. If you're around people that think big and challenge you to think bigger, it will make it a lot easier for you. If you're around people who spend money and have money and make money and have that relationship with money, it'll make that relationship with money easier to have than if you're around poor people. And not to dog on poor people, I didn't grow up rich, right? But if you if you hang out with that person that's eating Taco Bell every day saying they want to get fit, it's not going to be as effective for you as if you hang out with Arnold Schwarzenegger all day. Um, one of those people is living the life and we're, walking the walk, and the other's talking the talk. And if you get around the people that are actually doing the things, it'll help you a lot. And you'll notice it. Like if you hang out with 5 people that are super successful, they're going to challenge you to think bigger, ask bigger questions, think more abundantly. They're going to call you out if you're like, oh, well, what if? And they're like, dude, spend the money, do the thing. From a mindset perspective and getting around like being just successful and believing in yourself, a lot of it's trial and error, and a lot of it's getting around the right people. You have to take the action to feel the confidence, right? And that's even if it's a small action, just accomplishing something will help you with that confidence.
Yeah, I love that answer, and I also love that little piece of getting called out on your stuff, right? So I've got a couple coaches, and they will do that, and it's not always the most comfortable thing, but you always like, So I think this is important to think about, is like, do you want to grow? Then are you willing to do the things that are required? And that's another, to circle back to your point, one of the beautiful things about building friendships and, your network, as they are already a few levels above me, for example, then they will level me up if I will continue to like be coachable and go, yeah, no, that's great. Thank you so much. And then also try to add value like as best as possible whenever I can. Right. So
Yeah, I agree completely.
yeah, love that. Would you say that, if there was a key that unlocked success in your life or helped you to unlock success in your life, what would you say that key is?
um, well, we're going to stick to a different answer besides hanging out with the right people, because that one comes easy to me because I'm a networker. Um, Freaking reading, I
Mm,
would say self-education in general, because I did not do that for a long time. And it wasn't until someone handed me Rich Dad Poor Dad and I read it. The second or third time that somebody handed me that book was when I actually read it. My mom swears up and down that she handed it to me in high school and tried to get me to read it. I don't remember that at all. She's probably right. Um, I was 25 when I finally read that book. And it was like it took a boring subject, finances, investing, and made it interesting enough that I was like, ooh, this sounds cool. Let's read more of this. And then I started reading more books there and more books down Bigger Pockets and more books, more podcasts, YouTube University, whatever. That willingness to spend time every day learning something new and being curious is absolutely the key that has changed the trajectory of my life.
I love that, dude. Do you think that you were sort of because I'm the same way where I really, really have a strong desire to learn, right? Would you say you're born that way, or is that something that kind of like grew over time because you realized the benefit of it?
I think people are born that way for something they care about. So if you think
Mm.
about back to like high school, right? Like, were you a video game guy or a sports guy? Like, what was your thing? Skateboarding. You were a
Skateboarding.
skateboarder. There you
Yeah.
go. Did you ever have a problem convincing yourself to go out and try new tricks?
No,
It
it's
was
more
probably
of
more
like I
like
can't do
convincing
it all
yourself to get
day.
off the skateboard. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So the problem I think is like to answer your question, yeah, I think everybody's born that way. They just have to find something they're passionate about and then study it, right? And like I failed an English class in high school and now I've written 2 books. I was a B student on a good day, good test taker, horrible homeworker. Did not care at all about school. And so like if you were to ask my mom, was David a master of learning and always eager to whatever, she would have been like, the one semester he went to public school, I showed up for a surprise ice cream social to find out that my son was playing hooky and rock climbing with friends. That's how much David cared about school. Um, that would be like the
That's
one
probably a
semester
better
that I
use
was,
of your time.
dude, I'm still friends with those guys. One of them's a Navy SEAL.
Score. That's
And
awesome.
so yeah, it was great. It was great times.
Yeah.
And so yeah, imagine how much fun that phone call is. I'm with all my private school friends from another school, hanging out, rock climbing on this cliff in the middle of nowhere, and I get this phone call, and I'm like, they don't answer. That like finally I get back to her, after school would have ended, and I'm like, she's like, where were you? I'm like, at school. I couldn't answer my phone. And she's like, really? That's interesting because I was at your school too. I volunteered for the ice cream social today. I was like, what ice cream social? She's like, exactly. I was like, damn it. So by like
Busted.
traditional standards, no, not a good student. But by the standard of like when you actually want to learn something and diving deep, like I'm not an idiot, so I know how to learn. And so once that light bulb, turned on, it was a whole different ballgame for me.
Yeah, and that's that's huge. I think for me personally, I did not like I hated school, right? And so um and I didn't do good, and I did okay because I had a lot of pressure from my parents. I graduated like barely for some reason. So I had done 2 years of math, and so was skipping most of my last semester of geometry as a senior. And my teacher came up and talked to me. She's like, "Why are you missing all this class? You know you need the class to
Mm.
graduate, right?" I'm like, "No, I already did 2 years of math." She's like, "No, but you need the actual credits. Wouldn't matter what the class is." I was like, "Oh no!" So barely graduated. But later on, I did go back to school, and at that point in time, it was much easier for me to sort of learn and take this information in because I actually had the desire to do so at that point. So I think that that's like huge, in a super good point.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely changes things.
And books are one of the most affordable ways to actually, to learn a concept, right? So it's a great way to go. As we're getting close to wrapping this up, do you have a particular book outside of Rich Dad Poor Dad that you would recommend to the audience that they should get their hands on, like yesterday?
Yes and no. So I have a ton, and I always tell people the real question you want to ask is missing. You're lacking. Because the question is, do you have a book about insert topic that somebody would recommend, right? Because the problem, as you have probably learned, is as the more books you read, like there's a great book about all sorts of crap. So if you're like, what's a great book about why the world feels like it might be going to crap right now? Oh, you should read The Fourth Turning, which talks about the 4 generational cycles of humans and how between 2015 and 2035 crap might hit the fan because that's just generational cycles, or which is just a cool one. Why
That
does the
sounds like a
media
good
lie to me?
book.
Oh yeah, it's a dense one, but it's an interesting read. Why does the media lie to me? I don't know. Read Manufacturing Consent, and you'll learn. But to answer your question, right, the two most beneficial books that I've read so far this year have been, really, we'll just do one. We'll just do 10x is easier than 2x by Ben
Mm.
Hardy and Dan Sullivan. That one's a really good read on, I would say, for somebody who's already on the journey and looking to like outsource things and grow into their unique selling proposition and their zone of genius.
Yeah, that book right there, and I listened to it this year. I mean, I listened to my books, right? Crazy, amazing. Those two guys are unreal. That's one of the ones that I've got to really like go through 4 or 5 times at least, right? Because there's so much good stuff in there. So that's awesome. Well, hey, David, thanks again, man. As we're getting closer to wrapping up, a couple more quick questions for you. Is there any sort of deal that you're looking for out there? Any way our audience can support you? And what's the best way for our audience to connect with you?
Yeah, I'm a buy and hold guy. So most of my stuff's in Missouri, but if it makes sense, I'll look at it, look number wise. I'm a creative guy. So like if there's a way for me to get into it with low or no money down, you've piqued my interest. I'm looking at a portfolio right now of 32 houses, $5 million, and the seller's willing to carry 25% down. And I'm like, ooh, I could get into that for very, very low out of pocket, 20, 30 grand out of pocket for a $5 million portfolio. It's like, all right, does the math pencil for the rents? As long as the math pencils for the rents, then I'm probably going to pull the trigger on it. So those kinds of things. I dabble, man. I mean, I'm under contract on a hotel right now. That's 32 houses. Also looked at a commercial lot yesterday with a building on it. So, if the numbers work, I'll work with them. As far as where people can get a hold of me, the best thing you can do is go to thebestpodcastguest.com, and it's got you can download my book for free, and it has all my social media, so you can go follow wherever you want.
Yeah, that's awesome. Love it. And, thanks again for your time, David. And just to the audience, definitely reach out to David, follow him everywhere. Literally, he, drops tons of killer content all the time. And so with that being said, thanks again, David, and for joining us on another episode of The Gentle Art of Crushing It.
Are you interested in real estate investing but don't know where to get started or think you don't have the time or money? Are you stuck in your W-2 because the golden handcuffs make it hard to walk away? If this sounds like you, check out impactequity.net and schedule some time to talk with the founder, Randy Smith. Randy went from massive income to leaving his W-2 through passive income, and he can help you do the same. www.impactequity.net.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another episode of The Gentle Art of Crushing It. It was an amazing episode. We know we sure learned a lot, and we hope you did as well. We want to take a second and thank you so much for viewing or listening to this episode. And please just know that we only ask for one favor, and that is to make this life magnificent. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.